Hello, and welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Monica.
And I'm Andrea. And guys, we are at episode 15, the final episode of season 1 of Star Trek Discovery. And in this last episode of the season, we are sort of seeing the story comes full circle for the Michael and the Discovery crew. And we are getting a lot of answers to some questions, but also it ends in a way that gives us a little bit more questions than answers. So let's dive right in. Let's talk about it because there's so much that happened and I just can't believe it. So, initial reactions. What did you think?
I feel as though I definitely have closure, and it's definitely a closing of one chapter and a beginning of another one. I'm glad they didn't leave us with a really big cliffhanger. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to chatting about this episode and diving in deeper.
For me, this episode, through a lot of it, I was sort of just saying, stupid. You make stupid decisions. But you're right. It was some closure. Now that you say it was closure for this season. Because this first season gave us a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And if it had ended on a cliffhanger, I probably would have thrown my remote at the TV. So I like the episode. I like how they wrapped up the season, but at the same time, I just still feel like Starfleet, you make stupid decisions. But we'll get into that a little bit later as we get further into the episode. So the episode starts off with Georgio on the bridge, the Terran Georgio on the bridge of the USS Discovery. And she's basically sort of playing a less evil version of her Terran self. Like, you can tell that she's not really trying to be the real Georgio, or our Georgio. Like, she is saying some snide comments to Saru. And I like what Michael did in that moment to stand up for Saru, because Saru, I feel like he was in a little bit of a scared limbo. But I like how Michael sort of snapped at her and was like, oh, where did you taste Kelpian before? Or where did you where did this happen? I felt like trying to expose her, but at the same time trying to remind her, watch your mouth, because
I also think that it's the old school deflection technique, right? So my partner here is in trouble, Saru. Let me see if I could deflect Georgio's attention over to me and then ease that a little bit, because let's face it, Michael helped create this problem because she brought Georgio over into this universe,
which was one of my stupids, because I still
did not tell Saru about the ways of the Terran Empire eating.
I'm still gonna say that I think that she never planned. Well, she should have, but I don't think she ever planned on telling him. Even though she was supposed to, even though I fully believe that she should have, I don't think she would have unless, because it was a split-second decision to bring Georgio back with her. And I think if she didn't, she would have never told him, which would have been wrong. But I don't think she ever planned on telling Saru that she ate his kind. But I felt like I can see what you're saying. I can definitely see your point. But I've definitely felt like she was trying to do in a roundabout way of exposing her or telling her to stay in your place because we know your secret. Like, you're outnumbered.
Yes. Yeah. She was trying to put her in check. Right. Yeah. And Michael can do that because she has more history of everyone that's there. She's the only one that really knows all of the other darker secrets of this Terran Empire, Georgio. And what does Michael have to lose? I mean, she's already been court-martialed, so she can take a lot more risks.
The rest of her life in jail, so what's another year? And if Federation fails, she ain't going nowhere.
Right.
What jail is she gonna go back to? So then we see Georgio basically pulls Michael aside and tells her basically, watch your mouth. Like, either you're on my side or you're not. Like, the Federation needs me to do this because they couldn't do it themselves. And we see that Michael says, I know she's with her, and they go to visit L'Rell. And I have this love-hate relationship with L'Rell. I respected her in the very beginning, and then I found out what she did to Ash, and I was like, I can't support you anymore for girl power. No, because you're awful. But then like watching that scene of Georgiou trying to interrogate L'Rell for information on Kronos was a little hard to watch because like it wasn't a fair fight. Even though I love to see that actor fight, even though I love to see her in her element of just martial arts, it wasn't fair. And I was on Team L'Rell for like a moment, like fight back.
Right.
What did you think of that scene?
So for those that haven't watched that scene in a while or haven't seen it, it wasn't fair because L'Rell was braced down. Like there were these, I don't know, not bars, but there were bands around, like between her shoulder and her chest and around. So there were constraints.
She was basically like her arms were stuck to her side and she couldn't lift them up above a certain, like she couldn't even cover her face. Like that's how much she was constrained.
So she couldn't defend herself and definitely could not use her Klingon defense that she's learned along the way and just her natural instincts to help protect herself. So that's why this scene was really tough. And but Georgiou has some mad kick skills. Like those
that actress. Oh, whew, she is one of my favorites, and everything that she's in, I've loved. And I normally am always on her side in every single show and movie that I've ever watched her in. And this is the one scene, one of the one scenes where I was just like, please, someone knock her down.
Right.
And then we see, because L'Rell is being attacked so viciously and without any way to defend herself, we see Michael step in and like, there's another way. We can find your information another way. And that was also interesting because I can if you've seen this episode, or if you've seen it, like this entire season, Michael feels a certain way about L'Rell because of what happened to Ash. And L'Rell is basically the cause of everything that's going on with Ash, the man that she loves. And I've known she felt a certain way having to stand up for her to say, hey, we have another way of getting the information that you want. Stop what you're doing, stop attacking, which I thought was interesting because Michael has never really shown mercy to Klingons, and this time she sort of stepped in to save one. And I was surprised. I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. I saw two other points that I want to mention, and it's really about irony here. So L'Rell was constrained and didn't have power, right? Mm-hmm. And have freedom to be able to fight back. But then Ash was in a similar situation when he was in the brig over on the Klingon ship. So what comes around goes around, L'Rell.
I'm connecting the dots on the screen. Look at you. Yes, you're so right. I didn't even notice. I didn't even like connect those dots, but yes.
So, and then also there was a scene and L'Rell said, oh, we ate you, we devour you, like we ate you and we tasted your flesh. And
you still need seasoning.
Right. So that was interesting because Georgiou liked to eat Kelpian. And so it's interesting to see this like piece of irony also about like, okay, Georgiou, can you like taste this medicine too? Like, can you refuse it? So
that is another good that's another good point, and I missed that too. Like that, yes, because she was just bragging about eating another species, and now another species is saying, "Hey, we ate you, and you still look like you need seasoning."
Yeah. So I felt like that was a little clap back for Georgiou, like sorry, you could be low down on a totem pole too. So you might recognize.
So after Michael basically stops Georgiou from beating the crap out of L'Rell, they go to visit Ash because Ash has all the memories of Volk. And I felt like I saw Ash trying to be a little bit deep and like philosophical with the whole I'm like, dude, stop it. You stop it. Just Ash, we're not friends right now. Stop it. Stop trying to be deep and make Michael feel something for you because I'm still upset with you being the person you were last episode, basically trying to gaslight her into forgiving you when she really doesn't have to forgive you because you still lied to her. Right. But like he can help them map Kronos, because he does have Volk's memories and he can help them find the dormant volcano that they can go into and actually use it as a way to bring all the Klingons to their knees. And so they make the decision that they're going to fly down to this section of Kronos, which is inhabited by non-Klingons. Because I was wondering how they were going to get down there, like with Klingons. But it's called another species called Orions, and she requests that Tilly join them on the mission down. And I love Tilly. I love her so very much. She's the actress who plays her is so good because she's able to get into the role of Tilly, then also when she needs to be Tilly, who's a badass, get into that role as well. She does the awkwardness as well as the self-sureness so well. But in the scene, she comes in and she's like, she thinks that this is the Federation is Georgio, and Georgio's like, oh, I remember when we, defeated those, defeated the, I can't remember the race that she said, but basically enjoying all of their different revels that they did on Terran. And you can see in Tilly's face, like, oh, you're not. And Ash was like, nope, you're. And he's like, yep, you're the Terran Emperor. And then Tilly, as her awkward self, tries to do the Emperor salute. And Michael's like, don't do that. And I maybe watched that scene like 3 times just because it was just, Tilly was so adorable.
Right. Like, I'm confused. What role am I supposed to play right now?
She's like, oh, yeah. No, don't do that. Don't do that. And then we also see Georgio call Tilly Killy, because Tilly makes a point of saying, I'm not the same person I'm not the same person you know. And Georgio likes to correct her, says, don't be so sure about that, Killy. So that makes me think of what relationship that they had, because Georgio makes a point to request her and say that they worked together in wiping out Mintaka, Mitaka 3. I think that's the planet that she was talking about. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but basically wiping out that planet. So it shows me they had a close relationship on Terran as well. Which makes me think maybe Georgio's also doing this as a personal choice of having people familiar to her around her, which I didn't take Georgio as a personal person, Well, except for Michael.
Right. So Killy was the captain of USS Discovery in the Terran universe. The ISS. Thanks. The ISS Discovery, which meant that she moved up in ranks to captain. And if Terran Georgio is the emperor, and she promoted her up. So there must have been a level of trust there, I think, and understanding of this is the way. She was also not, I guess, part of Lorca's flip to the other side and so they must have some backstory. I think that could be his own spinoff. This totalitarian could be its own series, because there's a lot of stories that you could develop within that.
Yes. Yeah. And so then we see that they're beamed down to Kronos, and they're all wearing more rags than Federation uniforms. They're trying to blend in a little bit more. What does she call it? Low level.
Right. I think they also picked up Lorca's weapons.
Yes, because she does make a point to say Gabriel must have found something interesting in this world.
Right.
Also explains why he collected so many things from that universe. But so she makes a point to look through all the things that he collected to find something worth trading.
Yeah. I also don't think Ash would have shared information about the map if Michael did not join Georgio in that conversation about about the next steps. It seems as though he made this commitment because he looked at her and was like, oh. So I just wanted to set that stage a little bit before we talk about this away mission to Kronos.
I'm still not a fan of Ash anymore. He gaslit her last episode.
Yeah, we'll talk more about Ash.
I'm not. We don't do gaslighting in this household.
Yeah.
But they get on Kronos and they are basically they come into contact with one of the people there and they say, "Go away, Federation, you know, you're not welcome here." And then we see Tilly switch into the persona that she's supposed to have and brings a gun up to the person's head, and it was like, "Say another thing and you'll be breathing through a hole in the back of your head." And I'm like, "Yes, Tilly, that's what you do. That's what you do." But it goes to show that when Tilly needs to be that person, she can do it. But then, like, the moment the person walked away, she was like, "I'm starving. Are you hungry? I just need to get away from her. What are we going to do?"
She's able to switch on and off these roles. Yes.
And then before we go to break, I did want to talk about the fact that Tilly goes to get some food, and and she's eating it, and Georgio comes over. It's like, "What is it?" Oh, and Tilly's like, "Oh, I don't know. It's delicious." And Ash says, "Spacewell." She's like, "Gorma got it. No." And like spits it out. And I just like that she's so, like, Tilly's a character who like goes back and forth between being almost neurotypical, like not and she's like, everything needs to be a certain way. I can't talk to you. To see how she was in the beginning of the season, to being able to switch it on and off, and then she's just adorable. What did you think of that scene before we go?
I loved it. And also I like to also see scenes that flash back to that reference others previous episodes. So the connections there. So the space whale is also the endangered species that they were trying to save, that like Henry Muck was inside.
Harry Mudd. Like, the episode I still am not over.
So Harry Mudd. But, so they know it's in danger. They were trying to save it. It's like, "Oh no, I shouldn't be eating this. Too late now."
Oh my God, no.
Yeah. Could be worse. Could be a kelpie.
We don't need any more of those. So the episode now, we are at the part where Georgio and Ash and company and team, they're now at this Orion little den, and we see Georgio's enjoying the entertainment on the stage between a male and female Orion, and she makes a little quip saying, "Oh, I thought this entire universe was going to be boring." So we like to see that she likes to dabble in some stuff. She's not so straight-laced, and we know she's not straight-laced, but we really understand now that she enjoys to dabble into other stuff, and to other people, multiple people at the same time, because she requests to have some alone time with her, with the guy and the girl, alone. So then we see, while she's having fun with the Orions, we see that Ash and Michael, that they go play a game that Ash realizes that he's good at, because of Volk's memories. He knows how to play this dice game. And while that's happening, Tilly is sitting with this gentleman and inhales some like volcanic ash, some vapors, and she passes out. And while Ash is playing this dice game, we see Michael sort of get affected, and she walks away. And when Ash comes over to talk to her about it, she explains, because when the Klingons, like, we finally hear how the Klingons killed Michael's parents. And I thought it was just like by bombardment, but it was actual invasion, where they broke into her family's home while she was hidden in a cabinet, and they killed her father. They said they took longer with her mother, which I leaves open to impression of they did something, they just killed her more slowly, or they abused her body, which we don't really know what happened. But now that we know that Klingons don't really care what could have happened, and then the nerve of them to even sit down at her family's table and eat the dinner that her family had just prepared, that part of that scene was a heavy bunch of information all thrown together. And I, for one, was very sort of sad, like, listening to Michael's explanation of actually what happened to her family, because they never told us before what really happened. So what did you think about that whole scene?
So it's nice to finally get this backstory, so that we learn also why Michael is the way that part of it. We also learn that her family, her mother and father, wanted to go back to Earth, I think, wanted to leave.
Oh, they were going to go to Mars for a vacation.
But Michael wanted to stay to see something.
A supernova.
supernova. And so she insisted. And so I think now she's feeling guilty because if they would have left, then this would not have happened. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of guilt between that and then also all the other issues she finds out about along the way with Sarek and losing Georgiou, the original Georgiou, and so forth. There was just a lot of weight, a lot of, I think, reflection and misunderstandings as well.
I never really understood her hatred for them. Like, I knew that they killed her family, but I always assumed it was from like bombardment of like missiles and like a railgun. So it's like she knew it was them, but it was never that close contact. But to find out it was really like basically she was, if she had made a noise, if she had opened the cabinet door, who knows what could have happened to her. So it sort of makes her, it gives more of an understanding of her hatred of them and why hearing them laugh was such a trigger for her, because literally after slaughtering her family, she had to listen to them laugh and sit at a table and just and like hide in the cabinet. And that is so traumatizing, and also gives understanding of why she can't ever be with Ash again, because there's still a Klingon inside of him and mentally. And that's just such a huge trigger for her in a way that it would be different if it was like just from them bombing them or them blowing up a ship that her parents happened to be on, or them just like having a random spree. But it was more personal for her, which I felt that theme come across, that it was always more personal than just a bombardment. And now we know. But
yeah, I think especially if you're a kid and you're there, you're in the physical presence of this, but you're hiding and you can't help your parents. That's a whole other set of drama, PTSD. And then Sarek, a Vulcan, comes to her rescue. And then she has to relocate and learn a completely different way of life. This is a completely different character journey than what we've seen previously in Star Trek.
So then, like, after the scene, we see that Tilly wakes up from her being passed out, and she asks the gentleman who's trying to break into the case that she has, what did I inhale? Because she's like, my mouth tastes like sulfur and ash. She's like, oh, that was volcanic ash straight from the source. And Tilly's like, ha ha ha, no, it's not, because the volcanoes are dormant here, in her little adorable way. Because I love her. We're best friends. She doesn't know it yet. And and he tells her, no, the volcano is active. And so Tilly goes into her engineer mind mode, and she steals the device that he was trying to use to break into her case, breaks into it herself, and realizes it's not a drone in there that they were going to use to map the volcano system. It's a bomb, a hydro bomb, a bomb. So she calls Michael and Ash, and she's like, oh my gosh, it's a bomb, it's a bomb, it's a hydro bomb, basically. And Georgiou comes out of nowhere, did you say hydro bomb? And like knocks her out.
But meanwhile, Tilly is high as all get out.
Oh yeah, she's high. She's high.
Right. So she's having a hard time processing this. And that's the first thing she admits to Michael. I'm high, but
like, believe what I'm about to tell you.
Right.
And so Michael and Ash, they go to Tilly, see that Georgiou's long gone with the hydro bomb. And Michael, she calls to Starfleet, was like, hey, call Georgiou back to the ship. And he realizes he can't. We'll call the bomb back, and he realizes he can't. And she's like, Saru thinks that Georgiou is basically going against Starfleet. And Michael's like, I think she's not. I think this is what Starfleet's trying to do. And Saru beams back herself, Ash, and Tilly back to the ship. And Michael is like, I need to talk to Admiral Cornwell right now. And she pulls him up. And basically the Admiral's like, we are out of decisions. We have to do this. And then we get this line from Michael, which sort of brings this whole entire season full circle. And she says, and I quote, a year ago, I stood alone. I believed that our survival was more important than our principles. And I was wrong. And do we need a mutiny today to prove who we are? And I just loved that line, and I love that scene, because even though the hill that I was still dying on, that this whole war is not her fault, she understands now why Starfleet has the principles that they do and why they're so important. And basically saying, Starfleet, we cannot succumb to the same nature as our enemies. We cannot sit there and just kill all these innocent people for the sake of ourselves. Like, we can't. That's not who Starfleet is. What did you think of that scene between her and the Admiral? Because I was just like in awe. Still hello down, but still in awe.
Right. And I also think that the Admiral was probably acting based on emotion more so than Starfleet Federation principles. So an idea from Georgio, and there's other approaches. It just seemed like the Admiral was just going rogue. And I support the fact that the whole crew stepped up, including Saru, and said, we are Starfleet. We agree with Michael. They physically stood up to protest. And to my surprise, the Admiral caved and said to Michael, well, what do you suggest? And so like, well, why didn't you mention this option? Why didn't you approach them and like, let's brainstorm together before you made this deal with Terry and Georgio? But Starfleet.
And I liked that the people who stood up, there were people who were on the original Shinjo with Michael and Georgio, and how they stood up with Michael. And like the first episode of the season, they were against her because she basically did a mutiny. And now they're like, we're going to mutiny with her. Like, we're not doing this. So it was a nice full circle. But the interesting part is, I think I got this dot, was this time it was Georgio basically who was on the outs and Michael was on the end. Versus the first episode where Michael was on the outs and Georgio was on the end. So I was like, oh, look at that. Look how they did that. I connected the dot. I'm proud of me. So the episode continues and Michael beams down to, Michael ends up at the shrine where Georgio is and tells her, hey, look, you still have your immunity. You still have your freedom. But we're not doing this anymore. And Georgio's like, oh, you talked them out of it. And Michael said yes. That this Starfleet does not commit genocide. And Georgio makes his little snide comment, I think, at this time, basically saying it's not going to be genocide because when I did this on Terran, they all didn't die. But at least this time, they're not going to have the ships shooting them down as they try to escape. Which I was just like, that was just like salt in the wound. That was like a little snide little comment about the fact that, oh, everyone's not going to die. It's not going to be a complete genocide. Some people are going to escape. But what did you think of the whole interaction between Georgio and Michael? Because I think during this time, Michael says, you're really not my Georgio. Or you're like, nothing duh. My Georgio. And it's like, and I was yelling. I was like, of course she's not. She made you eat a person.
Right. Once again, it's way back to Lorca. It's about, she's thinking about the ghost of Georgio and she's having a hard time parting with that. But I was thinking about the fact that like this Georgio follows no rules. Is all based on what she wants to do. Right. She runs the empire. It's like a dictatorship. It's all her direction, not governing principles and developing a consensus. And no, none of that. So, Michael, why are you keep thinking about your previous Georgio? It's just
like literally they ate her. She ain't coming back. They ate her. They literally ate her. Sorry, they ate her. They said it was she needed some seasoning. It was bad. They had the long pig. I'm so sorry. But Michael, but this is also we're seeing her use more emotions than logic, which is so much different than what she used in the very beginning of the season. So it's just like we wanted her to be a little bit more emotional, like be more in tune with her emotions. And look where like she makes stupid decisions when that happens. But we see that Georgio gives in. Because she realizes if she kills Michael, all of Starfleet is going to be after her. That she'll never be free in this world. And Starfleet will still win, and she'll still be either she kills Michael, which Michael knows Georgio doesn't want to do, because just like Georgio's a ghost for Michael, Michael's a ghost for her.
Right.
And either way, Starfleet would always be after her. So Georgio says, do you want me to recode the bomb, the detonator, into your DNA? And she says no. And then we see Ash bring out L'Rell, which I don't understand. This is where I'm just like, stupid people make like Starfleet. What are you doing? I understand that they were going to connect L'Rell they want L'Rell to basically be the leaders of the Klingons because L'Rell would just keep the houses together.
But this is Michael's idea. This is not the Admiral's idea. So
I know, and it's stupid.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I should not say this, but it is. Michael, I have supported you in a lot, and I have told you when I think you're wrong, and I think you're wrong in this episode. I don't think you should have given L'Rell the bomb until it's planted within the Earth. Is planted within Kronos, because God forbid they find it and disarm it. Now they have a bomb that could kill. Like, no. Just say, hey, we have this bomb. Act right, or we'll blow up your home world. Like, do that. And then Ash deciding, I'm going to stay with L'Rell. No.
Yeah, that's like Stockholm syndrome. That's just crazy.
Because Vulcan's in his brain. And I'm just like, if you end up no, you do not go with your abuser.
Right. He feels trapped between the two worlds. He doesn't really feel like he belongs to the Federation or Starfleet. He's not Vulcan, but he's not Klingon, but he has some Klingon knowledge and tendencies, and he wants to connect with the Vulc side of himself. I don't know. It's a little strange. I have a feeling we haven't seen the last of Ash or L'Rell, actually.
They should have just let him go off, and like he's no longer a member of Starfleet, and like just let him go off and like fend for himself. Like, he's not welcome on Earth anymore, but like he's not a member of Starfleet. He has to go make a new spot for himself. But for him to literally go with his abuser,
right?
Like, it's one thing for him to like go with like Sarek or go with someone else, but your abuser, your actual person who abused you in multiple physical and mental ways.
They tried to play this off by saying that Ash/Vulc will help L'Rell like learn the error of her ways and make sure that she's like guided and principled. But really, she has so much control over him. I agree with you. This was it was hard for me to believe in this aspect of the plot.
I was literally screaming stupid at my screen, because I was just like, this, why would you do this? Why would you do this? So Georgio leaves. L'Rell unites the 24 houses of the Klingon Empire, and we see that Michael is back home on Earth. The threat is gone from the Klingons. The war is over, and she's talking to her adoptive mother, and Sarek comes out, calls her my daughter, and is the one to tell her that she is basically readmitted back into Starfleet, that she has her rank back, that her record is expunged, and she is basically good to go. Everything's good. Starfleet loves you. We see that Tilly is promoted, and so is Paul. He's promoted, or he's given a medal, and then Hugh was also recognized as well. And then they're on their way.
Earns a medal of honor.
Yes, Saru. Sorry, yes, Saru gets a medal of honor, and he's the first Kelpian to receive the medal of honor. And so Starfleet looks like it's going to end in a nice way. This episode ends like it's going to end in a nice way, and they're on their way to Vulcan to drop Sarek off and pick up the new captain, which makes me think the new captain is going to be Vulcan, which is interesting. And they get a distress call from the USS Enterprise, and that is how this episode ends.
Well, they also mentioned that the distress call was from Captain Pike. So for those that are new to Star Trek, Captain Pike is also part of was the captain for Enterprise. And he was in other, movies as well. So we might now have a connection in the timeline. This will be pretty cool to see this bridge. And I'm excited for where it's going to go. It's also nice because they ended the episode with the old school, like the original Star Trek intro song. Or so I'm not as familiar with that, but I recognize the song. So it's pretty cool to make that connection. I think that's for fandom as well. So we'll see where we go, or possibly introduce some new captains. I do remember that when Saru entered onto the bridge, they the crew acknowledged Saru by stating, something about welcome aboard, Captain Saru. And he said acting captain. So so it will be interesting to see how the crew evolves in the next season. What happens with the USS Enterprise, Michael, who's now a commander, and Tilly, who was now promoted up to like the command training program. So lots of opportunities there.
I have to say, I don't know, because I won't watch season 2 until the new year. I don't know what their thought process is around giving the Discovery a new captain, only because the Discovery has been through so much more than any other Starfleet, like unit based. I don't know what to call it. Sorry, the Discovery, they've literally went to a new world, like another dimension. They had the spore drive, and then we also learned that they're not using the spore drive anymore because they want to use a non-human interface for the spore drive. So Paul's no longer needed. So it just makes me wonder, like, how can a new captain really come aboard and unify this group that's bonded over so much, having the first Klingon sleeper agent within a human. They went to a new, they were in a time loop. They went to a new universe. Their captain was from the other universe and was willing to kill them. Then they had the emperor. Like, they went through so much that's like no captain can be like, hey, I'm here with you guys. I know what you've been through. No, you don't.
Right, but I'm not sure that Saru is ready for a potential next battle. I think he's a captain in training. He's a captain in training. But I'm not sure, because just also remember, I don't know, a year ago in this timeline, so like 9 months previously, when Georgio back on Ascenju, Saru
Michael was next in line, not Saru. Yeah, you're right.
Saru was third in command.
Yeah, so, Michael was next in line, not him. Right. Yeah.
They need leadership, seasoned leadership, and Starfleet still has to rebuild because a lot of people died.
They should have this new captain as the acting captain to train Saru to be the captain, because no other Starfleet captain can really relate to everything that they've been through because their situation was so unique. But that's just my thinking. So do you have anything else that you want to talk about for this episode before we wrap up?
Just that there was a lot of fear that they had to overcome in this whole season, all 15 episodes. Now we're realizing Michael had a fear of the Klingons, and she had to deal with fear and, like, I don't know, the anxiety after losing Georgio in the battle with the Klingons. And then
Ashley's fear of Morel.
Yes. Yes.
Saru's fear, like his threat ganglia thing. Ripper.
Right. And also Michael's fear of not finding love. Right. So there was a lot. Fear. I understand. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. I'm just being my cynic self.
and defeat. Saru had a lot of fear. He didn't believe in himself. There was a lot of journeys there. Tilly wasn't confident in her ability to become part of Starfleet, and then Michael helped to train her to get over that. Get over it, girl, and run these laps, and you're on the right trajectory. Paul had his journey, so had to overcome a lot of fear and defeat it. That's fun.
No, yeah. No, you're right. You're right. There was a lot that had to come over this season. Some things should not have been done to Michael, but I just neither here nor there because I'm not the writer of the show. But we'll talk about it in the next episode. But as always, please subscribe, like this, share it with your friends. If you know anyone who's into Star Trek, please let them, please show this to them. Please let them know about us. We are just two girls who love Star Trek and everything that comes with it. And so we will be next episode. Make sure you come around because we're going to do a recap of all of season 1 to end out the year. It'll be our last episode next Tuesday. So make sure you come back, listen to all the episodes so you can get all of our ideas and what we thought so far of this season. And like if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the little red subscribe button and the little thumbs up. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple, please follow, share it on all the social medias, please. And as always, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Anika.
And live long and prosper.